She called 911 and ended up saluting a major general. The cabin smelled of old pine and yesterday's wood fire. I had come up here 3 weeks earlier with no real plan beyond disappearing for a while. No Wi-Fi, no cell signal worth mentioning, just me, a stack of paperbacks, a coffee pot that hissed like an angry cat, and several cords of split oak I'd hauled in before the first real snow dusted the ridges. That Saturday morning the sky was the pale, hard blue you only see at altitude. I stood on the narrow porch in wool socks and a flannel shirt that had once belonged to my father, cradling a chipped enamel mug. Steam rose in lazy spirals and vanished. 30 yards downslope the creek talked to itself over smooth stones. For once my head was quiet. No emails, no deadlines, no voices asking me why I'd left the city so suddenly. I was thinking about walking the old logging road, maybe see if the beaver dam had survived the autumn rains, when I heard the first unnatural sound. A branch snapped, not the soft crack of a deer stepping carefully. This was careless, heavy, followed immediately by a boy's voice, high and excited. "Mom, there's a house, like a real cabin with smoke." I froze. My property line is marked by a rusted barbed wire fence that sags in most places and has disappeared entirely in others, claimed by blackberry brambles and young fir. Most hikers and hunters respect the posted signs. Most locals know better than to cut through. But children don't read signs, and children don't know posted means stay out. I set the mug on the railing and stepped to the edge of the porch, squinting through the trees. There he was, maybe 9 or 10, wearing a bright red jacket that made him look like a misplaced cardinal against the muted greens and browns of the forest. He held a pair of cheap binoculars to his face, the kind that come with a birthday party goodie bag. The lenses were pointed straight at my chimney. I should have called out then. A friendly, "Hey kid," private property would probably have sent him scampering back. But something in the way he stood, so openly, so unafraid, made me hesitate. I'd spent too many years in rooms full of people who smiled while they calculated angles. This boy wasn't calculating anything. He was just looking. Then I heard her. Ethan James, you get back here right now." The voice was sharp, female, and laced with the particular brand of panic that only mothers can produce on short notice. Twigs cracked again, faster this time. A woman burst through the underbrush about 20 yards behind the boy. She wore yoga pants, a puffy vest the color of expensive wine, and bright white sneakers that were already collecting pine needles and mud. Her hair was pulled into a hasty ponytail. Strands had escaped and stuck to her flushed cheeks. In her right hand, she clutched a phone like a weapon. "Ethan, I swear, come here." The boy, Ethan, lowered the binoculars but didn't move. "Mom, look, it's like a pioneer house. There's even an axe stuck in the chopping block." I felt the exact moment her gaze found me. She stopped dead. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then she raised the phone to her ear with the speed of someone who had rehearsed this exact nightmare scenario in her head 100 times. 911, yes, hello. There's a man, he's watching my son. We're on the old Forest Service road past the hairpin turn. He's just standing there staring. Please send someone right away. Her voice cracked on the last word. She took 2 steps backward, pulling Ethan by the sleeve so hard his feet nearly left the ground. "Mom, what are you doing? He's not even close." "Quiet." I raised both hands slowly, palms out, the universal gesture that says I mean no harm. "Ma'am," I called, keeping my tone low and even, "this is private land. I'm not coming any closer. Your boy wandered over the line, that's all." She didn't seem to hear me. Or maybe she did and didn't believe me. Her eyes were wide, darting from me to the cabin to the trees as if expecting accomplices to step out from behind every trunk. The phone was still pressed to her ear. "Yes, he's still there. Tall, dark hair, maybe 30s or 40s, wearing a plaid shirt. He has a cabin. I don't know if he's armed. Please hurry." I sighed. The morning's peace was officially gone. "Ma'am," I tried again, louder this time but still calm, "I live here. Alone. I'm not going to hurt anyone. Just take your son and head back down the trail. You're maybe 3 minutes from the county road." She finally looked at me, really looked. For a second I thought reason might break through the adrenaline. Then Ethan tugged free of her grip and took 2 steps toward me. "Cool axe," he said, pointing at the splitting maul embedded in the stump. "Is that a Grensforce?" I almost laughed, almost. "Ethan," she shrieked, lunging after him and grabbing the back of his jacket like he was about to sprint into traffic. "Do not talk to him." I lowered my hands. "I'm going back inside now," I said clearly. "Door will be closed. You won't see me again unless you come onto my porch, okay?" I turned without waiting for an answer and walked, slowly, back through the open door. I pulled it shut behind me, not slamming it, just closing it with a soft click. Then I stood at the window, watching through the half-open slats of the blind. She was backing away now, dragging Ethan with her. He was protesting loudly, "Mom, you're being so embarrassing." But she wasn't listening. Her phone was still up, though I couldn't tell whether she was still connected or just holding it like a talisman. A minute later they disappeared behind a thick stand of lodgepole pine. I heard her voice fatting down the slope, a mixture of scolding and reassurance aimed at the boy and maybe at herself. I exhaled. My heart was beating harder than it should have been for something so small. Outside, the mug of coffee had gone cold on the railing. A jay landed nearby, cocked its head at me, then flew off with a flash of blue. I thought about the dispatcher on the other end of that 911 call. I thought about how long it would take a patrol car to wind up the mountain road, probably 30 to 40 minutes if they even bothered to come all the way to the end of the line. I thought about how many times in the last few years I'd told myself that moving out here would mean fewer misunderstandings, fewer people, fewer explanations. Apparently not. I picked up the mug, dumped the cold coffee over the side of the porch, and went back inside to build up the fire. Somewhere down the ridge a siren began to wail, distant at first, then growing louder as it climbed. So much for solitude. Inside the cabin the fire crackled softly, but my pulse was a steady drumbeat against my temples. I'd closed the door with that deliberate click, hoping it would de-escalate things, but the woman's voice still echoed faintly through the trees. "He's armed." I saw him move like he was hiding something, before fading into the underbrush. Ethan had protested one last time, "Mom, he's just a guy with coffee." But she'd yanked him away, her white sneakers flashing like surrender flags in the duff. I crossed to the kitchen table where my own phone sat, an old satellite model that barely held a signal up here but enough for emergencies. No bars now, of course. The mountains played those games. Through the window slats I watched her silhouette vanish down the slope, phone still glued to her ear. Sirens wailed closer, maybe 10 minutes out on that serpentine Forest Service road. Plenty of time to think but not to run. Running would only make it worse. The dispatcher's voice must have been tinny in her ear. "Ma'am, stay on the line. Can you describe the suspect again? Location, confirm the cabin off the old logging spur." She'd stammered it out, voice trembling with that mix of fear and self-righteousness I'd seen too many times before. "Yes, he's dangerous, dark hair, flannel shirt, probably 40s. My son was trespassing. No, this is wilderness. We just moved here for fresh air and now this stranger's lurking." I wasn't just anyone, not some burnout who'd fled the city after a divorce or a bad trade. My name's on the deed, fully paid, surveyed last year after I bought the adjacent 40 acres to buffer the noise from the valley subdivisions creeping up like kudzu. But they didn't know that. To her, I was the boogeyman in plaid, the reclusive hermit who didn't wave at passers-by. Little did she know my background. Ex-Army JAG Corps, retired property litigator who'd spent 15 years dismantling overreaching HOAs and entitled neighbors in courtrooms from Denver to Boise. I'd won cases on boundary disputes where kids' treehouses encroached 5 feet over lines marked by rusted wire and no trespass signs, cases where panicked parents called cops, claiming imminent danger, only for surveys to drop like guillotines. Paperwork over panic. Deeds don't care about feelings. Why the cabin? Burnout from the suits, yeah, but mostly victory. My last big win. A Montana rancher versus a busybody HOA president who'd let her teens roam like feral cats, knocking over fences, harvesting stray apples. She dialed 911 when he posted the survey pins. Deputies arrived. He handed over the plat map, notarized chain of title, and a polite cease and desist. Charges dropped. She paid his legal fees under nuisance abatement statutes. Like Justice says, property lines are sacred, defined by deeds and surveys, not assumptions. Neighbors learn quick when you let the law do the shouting. But here, no HOA yet. This was unincorporated county, loose zoning for recreational cabins. They'd probably rented that double-wide down the ridge, sight unseen, chasing mountain living without checking the plat books. Ethan's binoculars had crossed my line by 20 paces. Blackberries hid the barbs, but my GPS markers didn't lie. I moved methodically. First, the fire poked it down to embers, no smoke signals. Then the safe under the floorboards, unlocked it, pulled the stack. Top. Certified deed copy filed 2024 with meets and bounds description tying to the 1887 homesteader grant. Below, recent survey from Eldridge & Sons, $8,500 well spent, pins flagged with orange tape where brambles encroached. Next, my concealed carry permit valid, sheriff signed, no round chambered. The Glock stayed holstered, no need to fuel her armed narrative. Last, a manila folder of precedents. Fannin County v. Patterson echoes that free-range kid walk sparking reckless conduct BS, dismissed on property rights, plus California Civ. Code Section 841 analogs for fences adapted here. Even X-Threads ranted about it. Moms swatting over backyard play, cops cuffing parents while real trespassers roam. Sirens crested the ridge, Dopplering down to gravel crunch. 2 units, county SUV leading, lights poolsing blue-red against the firs, followed by a marked cruiser. They parked 50 yards out, respecting the implied line, no dash across my turf yet. Doors opened. Deputy Ramirez first, the one who'd helped me with the Bear Cull permit last fall. Stocky, mustache like a broom, nodding as he approached porchward. His partner, younger, green, hand on holster, scanning. Behind them, the woman and boy emerged from the pines, her ponytail frayed, arms around Ethan like a vice. She'd parked her Subaru crooked on the pullout, hazards blinking. "Mr. Harlan," Ramirez called, voice carrying calm over the creek burble. "Sheriff's office. Got a call about a trespass and possible threat. Mind stepping out?" I opened the door slow, hands visible, folder in left, coffee mug refilled, hot black in right. Flannel untucked, boots scuffed from chopping. No menace. "Morning, Raoul. Coffee." He chuckled despite the tension. "Later, maybe. Ma'am says her kid was in danger." She piped up from the tree line, shrill. "He was peeking. You stared him down. I saw an axe." Ethan squirmed. "Mom, it was a maul for wood, and he said hi." Ramirez glanced at me, eyebrow up. I extended the folder. "Private land, Raoul. Kid crossed here." I pointed to the sagging wire, brambles parting to show my orange pin 3. "Surveys fresh. Deeds recorded. No threat." I raised hands, went inside. He flipped it open, scanning the plat, my cabin dead center in 160 acres, their trail a public easement ending 50 feet shy. "Ma'am," he turned, "this checks. Your boy's safe, but this is posted property. Boundaries are law, deed says so." Echoing fine law, lines from surveys, not eyes. No DIY markers, mine were pro. Her face crumpled, entitlement cracking. "But we're new," the realtor said, "open woods. He could be anything." "Anyone," I said evenly, channeling every deposition. "Ex-Army lawyer, ma'am, fought for rights like yours down valley. Kids wander, happens. But call 911 again, false. That's a report. County hates SWATs, wastes resources." Ramirez nodded. "Like that Utah free-range case. Mom's panicking, dad's cuffed, then dismissed on acres of land. Log it as civil advisory." She deflated, dragging Ethan back. Fine, we're leaving. Ethan, never again. As their Subaru fishtailed away, Ramirez lingered. New folks from the city think it's all public. Saw your Navy surplus boat story online. Figured you'd handle. Past chats. He knew my lake cabin phase too. I grinned faint. Paperwork prevails. Units rolled out, sirens off. Fire rebuilt, coffee hot. Solitude returned, but sharper now. She'd learned deeds trump drama. Her fresh air bumped my quiet. Next time, survey in hand, I'd remind her boundaries bind. But whispers downridge already. That cabin guy's armed. Dangerous. The HOA seed planted. They'd form one soon, like the Marina Carens with my patrol boat. Federal reg crushed them, here county code would. Minutes ticked. I traced the deed's ink, solid lines, my fortress. Chaos on the line. Nah, just the prelude. The sirens cut off abruptly as the 2 patrol cars rolled to a stop on the gravel turnout, 50 yards shy of my porch. Dust swirled in lazy cones around their tires, catching the late morning sun like faint smoke. One was the familiar county SUV, white with gold lettering, light bar still pulsing blue and red in silence. The second was a state trooper's Charger, black and tan, unmarked except for the shield on the doors. No SWAT, no rifles drawn. Just standard response to panicked 911 call about a stranger near a child. I stepped out onto the porch without hurry, hands loose at my sides, the manila folder of deeds and survey plats tucked under my left arm. The Glock stayed inside, holstered on the kitchen table, unnecessary now and counterproductive. I'd learned long ago that visible weapons turn misunderstandings into incidents. Flannel shirt, jeans, wool socks, no shoes. Just a man who'd been drinking cold coffee and chopping firewood. Deputy Ramirez climbed out first, same stocky build, same broom mustache. He raised a hand in greeting, casual but alert. The trooper followed, younger, taller, academy fresh haircut, and the passenger from the SUV. A sergeant I didn't recognize, female, dark hair and a tight bun under her cap. Then the lead officer stepped forward from the state car. Tall, broad-shouldered, salt and pepper hair cropped military short under his wide-brim hat. He moved with the deliberate stride of someone who'd spent decades in formation. When he cleared the hood and got a full look at me, he stopped dead. Recognition hit him like a physical blow. His eyes widened fractionally, then narrowed in assessment. For 2 heartbeats, the mountain air held its breath. Without a word, he came to attention, heels together, shoulders squared, chin up. His right hand snapped to his brow in a crisp, parade ground salute. "Yes, Major General," he barked, voice carrying across the clearing like a drill field command. The other deputies froze. Ramirez's hand dropped halfway to his radio. The sergeant's mouth parted in silent surprise. Even the wind through the pines seemed to pause. I returned the salute automatically, old muscle memory overriding everything. Palm down, fingers straight, 2 fingers brushing the brim of an imaginary cover. Then I dropped it and stepped down the porch steps, gravel crunching under my socks. "Stand easy, Colonel," I said quietly. My voice was low, the way it had been in briefing rooms and courtrooms for 30-plus years. "At ease, all of you. This isn't a formation." He lowered his hand but stayed at attention a second longer, protocol ingrained. Then he relaxed fractionally, though his posture remained textbook. "Sir," he said, quieter now, "I didn't realize it was you. Dispatch said possible armed suspect near a child. I pulled the call sheet on the way up, recognized the address from the plat maps when we ran the boundary dispute last year. But seeing you here..." He trailed off. Colonel Elias Eli Harlan, no relation, just coincidence of surname, had been a captain the last time we crossed paths, back in '05 at Fort Meade during a JAG conference on rules of engagement post-Abu Ghraib. I'd been a 1-star then, lecturing on military justice and property claims in theater. He'd asked sharp questions about chain of command liability in contractor disputes, sharp enough that I'd remembered the name. Now he was a full bird, probably commanding the state police district that included these mountains. And I was retired Major General Harlan Voss, former Judge Advocate General's Corps, retired after 32 years, the last 8 as the Judge Advocate General of the Army before hanging up the uniform in 2022. 2 stars earned the hard way: combat deployments, endless courts-martial, congressional testimonies, and finally the Pentagon desk where policy got written in blood and ink. The woman and boy were still visible down the trail, her Subaru idling, hazards blinking. She watched from the driver's seat, phone in hand again, probably live streaming to her new mom group chat. Ethan waved tentatively. She yanked his arm down. Ramirez cleared his throat. General, sir, we got a report of. I know what you got, I said. Kid wandered over my line, binoculars, mother panicked, standard new neighbor drill. I held out the folder. Deeds, survey, posted signs, everything's current, no threat. I went inside when she called it in. Eli took the folder, flipped through it without really looking, more for show. Checks out, he said to the others. Private property, recorded 2024. Survey pins match county GIS. No probable cause for entry. The sergeant nodded slowly. So, false report. Not false, I corrected. Misunderstanding. Fear's real. She's new here, city transplant probably. Realtor sold her open wilderness. Didn't mention the 80 acres of posted land next door. Eli handed the folder back. Sir, if you'd like, we can speak to her. Advise on boundaries, trespass statutes. Maybe de-escalate before it turns into a pattern. I considered it. Part of me wanted the quiet to stay quiet. Another part, the part that had spent decades teaching young Jags how to diffuse before it blew, knew education beat escalation. Appreciate it, Colonel, but let's keep it low-key. I'll handle the civil side if it comes up again. You've got better things to do than referee property lines. He gave a small smile, first crack in the formality. With respect, sir, seeing you out here in flannel instead of stars. It's a hell of a sight. Last time I saw you, you were briefing the SecDef on detainee ops. Last time you saw me, I said, I was chewing out a major for sloppy discovery in a court-martial. Different uniform now. Ramirez chuckled despite himself. The tension broke like thin ice. Eli turned to his people. Stand down. Log it as civil advisory, property dispute resolved on scene, no further action. They nodded, headed back to their vehicles. Eli lingered a moment. Sir, he said quietly, if you ever need anything, backup on a boundary call or just coffee that isn't 3 hours old, my office is open. We don't forget the people who shaped the Corps. I extended a hand. He shook it firm, no games. Appreciate that, Eli. And it's just Harlan now, or Voss if you're feeling formal. He grinned, yes, sir. The cars pulled out in a slow convoy, lights off, gravel popping under tires. I watched until the dust settled, then turned back to the cabin. Inside, the fire had burned low. I built it up, set fresh coffee on the stove. Through the window, the trail was empty now, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way forever. Word would spread down the ridge. The dangerous stranger was a retired 2-star JAG general who'd once run the entire Army legal system. Panic might turn to curiosity or resentment. New neighbors didn't like being wrong, especially when the law backed the old hermit in the woods. I poured coffee, black and hot, sat on the porch, watched the jay return, cocking its head at me like it knew something I didn't. Solitude had just acquired a new neighbor, reputation. And reputations, like boundaries, had a way of drawing lines. The dust from the departing patrol cars had barely settled when the woman, still gripping her son's jacket like a lifeline, stepped forward from the tree line. Her Subaru sat crooked on the turnout, engine idling, hazards blinking in nervous rhythm. She'd clearly intended to drive away the moment the officers rolled out, but something held her feet to the gravel. Curiosity, maybe, or the sudden, sinking certainty that she'd misread everything. From the porch, I watched her approach. Slow steps, hesitant like someone walking onto thin ice. Ethan trailed behind, eyes wide, no longer protesting. The boy's red jacket was smudged with pine sap. His binoculars dangled from a strap around his neck like a trophy he'd forgotten to claim. She stopped about 15 feet from the bottom step, close enough to speak without shouting, far enough to feel safe. Her ponytail had come half undone, strands stuck to her damp forehead. The phone was still in her hand, screen dark now. She swallowed. I'm so sorry, I thought. Her voice cracked. She looked from me to the spot where Colonel Harlan had saluted, then back again, as though replaying the moment in slow motion. The salute, the "Yes, Major General," that had cut through the mountain air like a rifle crack, the way every deputy had straightened instinctively. Her jaw dropped open another fraction. Eyes widened until the whites showed all around the irises. Color drained from her cheeks, leaving two bright fever spots. You're a general," the words came out small, almost a whisper. "A real one, like retired Major General." I nodded once. Retired Harlan Voss, former Judge Advocate General's Corps. She blinked rapidly, processing. The JAG, the one who testified before Congress about the detainee stuff. I saw you on C-SPAN once. Years ago, you were in dress blues. There was that big hearing after. She stopped herself, hand flying to her mouth as if she'd said too much. Realization washed over her in visible waves. First shock, then mortification, then something close to awe mixed with dread. "I called 911 on a two-star general," she breathed. "I told them you were dangerous, armed, staring at my son." Ethan tugged her sleeve. "Mom, he wasn't starring, he was just drinking coffee, and he said hi." She didn't seem to hear him. Her gaze darted to the Axe Mall, really still embedded in the chopping block. Then to the cabin, then to me. "I saw the axe and the binoculars and you standing there so still. We just moved here 2 weeks ago. The realtor said it was all open forest, safe for kids to explore. I didn't know there were property lines like this." I panicked. I stayed where I was, hands in pockets now, voice level. "Most people don't know until someone points it out. The signs are there, every 50 feet along the old fence, but brambles hide them. Your boy didn't do anything wrong. Kids wander. Happens all the time." She shook her head, ponytail swinging. "But I made it sound like you were some kind of predator on the phone. I said stranger danger. I said send someone right away. They probably have the recording. Oh God." One of the deputies, Ramirez, hadn't quite left yet. He'd lingered near his SUV, door open, watching the exchange. Now he walked over, slow and calm. "Ma'am," he said gently, "we've logged it already. Civil advisory only. No charges, no report filed against you. Misunderstanding on private property. Happens more than you'd think, especially with new folks moving up from the valley." She looked at him, then back at me, tears welled, not quite spilling. "I'm so sorry, truly. I feel like an idiot. My husband's going to kill me when he hears this. We came here for quiet, fresh air. Less drama than the suburbs, and the first thing I do is call the cops on a decorated veteran." Ethan finally spoke up, voice small but clear. "Are you really a general, like, with medals and everything?" I gave him the smallest of smiles. "Used to be. Medals are in a box somewhere. Don't wear them anymore." "Cool," he said, eyes shining. "Did you fight in wars?" "Deployed a few times. Mostly legal work after that, courts-martial, rules of engagement, advising commanders. Less glamorous than it sounds." The mother wiped her eyes with the back of her sleeve. "I'm Lauren Carter. This is Ethan. We rented the double-wide down on Ridgeview Loop. Thought we were buying into some idyllic mountain life. Apparently I bought into paranoia instead." "Harlan," I said again, though she already knew. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Lauren. It's quiet up here most days. Let's keep it that way." She managed a shaky laugh. "Yeah, lesson learned. I'll read the plat map the realtor gave us, properly this time, and I'll tell Ethan about boundaries. No more wandering with binoculars. Good plan, Ramirez said. He tipped his hat. You folks have my card if anything else comes up, but I suspect this'll be the last call we get about this address. He climbed into the SUV, backed out carefully, and disappeared down the switchbacks. Lauren lingered a moment longer. Is there anything I can do to make this right? Bake something. I make terrible cookies, but... No need, I said. Just keep your boy on your side of the line. And if you ever want to know where that line actually runs, I've got the survey plats. Happy to walk it with you sometime. Show you the pins. She nodded, relief finally softening the tension in her shoulders. Thank you, really, and thank you for your service. I know that sounds cliché, but I mean it. I inclined my head, appreciated. She turned, guiding Ethan back toward the Subaru. Halfway there, he looked over his shoulder. Bye, General Voss. I raised a hand. Just Harlan, kid. They got in. The engine revved, hazards clicked off. The car eased down the road, taillights winking through the trees until they were gone. I stood on the porch a long minute, listening to the quiet settle back in. The J returned, landed on the railing, cocked its head. I poured the last of the coffee, now lukewarm, and sat on the top step. Shock had come and gone, apology delivered, boundary acknowledged. But I knew how these things worked. Word would spread through the new subdivisions creeping up the valley, the crazy lady who called the cops on the general. Then curiosity. Then invitations. Then, inevitably, the ones who didn't like being told where the line was. Lauren Carter had learned today. Others would learn tomorrow. I sipped the cold coffee and watched the light shift on the ridge. Solitude wasn't gone. It had simply grown teeth. The last patrol car's taillights vanished around the final switchback, swallowed by the thickening pines as the mountain road descended into shadow. Deputy Ramirez had given a final nod from his open window. Take care, General. We'll log the pins if she wanders again. Before the gravel crunch faded to silence. Lauren Carter's Subaru had peeled out minutes earlier, Ethan waving one last time through the rear window like a kid who just met a superhero. The creek resumed its murmur over the stones. The jay scolded from a fir branch, and the air cooled with that high-altitude bite, carrying the faint tang of wood smoke from my chimney. I lingered on the porch a moment longer, folder of deeds still under my arm, feeling the weight of the day settle like fresh snow. No anger, just the quiet satisfaction of boundaries held not by force but by fact. AR 625, the Army's salute reg, mandates respect for retirees like me. Colonel Harlan's crisp "Yes, Major General" wasn't theater. It's custom. Active duty renders honors to flag officers, retired or not, outdoors in uniform or civvies. Per the drill master and Reddit JAG threads, it's drilled in. Enlisted salute warrants and up, juniors to seniors. Harlan, ex-Army himself from our 05 Fort Meade overlap, knew the drill. No one forgets the JAG who briefed SecDef on Abu Ghraib Row or testified on detainee ops. Fictional. Harlan Voss is my story, echoing real TJAGs like LTG Joseph Berger, fired 25 amid Hegseth purges, or MG Bobby Christine, but rooted in core truth. Paperwork prevails, even in flannel. I stepped inside, the cabin's warmth enveloping me like an old coat. The fire needed tending, embers glowed under ash from the morning's oak splits. I knelt, added split fir, dry snaps quick poked until flames licked up, casting flickering gold on the rough-hewn logs. Coffee pot hissed on the propane stove. I poured a fresh mug, black as the night creeping over the ridges. No sugar, no cream, solitude's fuel. Sat at the scarred pine table, survey plat unrolled beside the deed. Meets and bounds from Eldridge and Sons. Orange pins once well flagged where brambles hid the sagging barbed wire. Lauren's open woods illusion shattered. Her double white on Ridgeview sat bang on the easement end, 50 feet shy of my line. Like those ex-posts, squatter ant find by HOA irony, or the Idaho cabin explorer posting ruins amid snow fences. Boundaries bind, deeds don't bend. Sunset painted the west window bloody orange, snowy peaks gnawing the horizon like jagged teeth. I sipped slow, replaying the tape in my head. Ethan's binoculars crossing the wire, innocent trespass, free-range kid vibe clashing with posted land. Lauren's 911 panic, armed stranger. Classic city transplant, per fine law precedents on nuisance calls wasting sheriff resources. Charges. Ramirez logged civil advisory, echoing Utah free-range dismissals where surveys trumped screams. Her shock at the salute, the C-SPAN nod to my 08 hearings. Silver Star from Gulf One not fictional earned humping briefs under fire. Bronze Oak from Iraq advising on contractor claims. Purple Heart 04 Fallujah skirmish. Multiple tour, JAG isn't desk only, we deploy litigate intense. I just saw you, she'd stuttered, mortified. Ethan awed, medals and wars. Lessons landed. For them, never judge the hermit by the axe or the stare. The threat was the shield, 32 years dismantling overreaches. From HOA Karen's claiming Lake Docks, my surplus Navy patrol boat win, federal reg crushing bylaws to ranch orchards burned in controlled fires, that CH7 payout, negligence suits, board resignations. Like the Marina saga, Karen's tow truck paling at duty papers, or ex-rants on neighbor kids sparking CPS falsies. Properties sacred, wander face law not lead. For me, another notch. The day a false 911 birthed a salute, turning panic to respect. I'd tell it sparse, maybe to Eli Harlan next coffee, or log it in the journal with other victories. No boasts, results speak. Phone buzzed, sat signal flickered, a text from an old core buddy. Heard about the cabin call, 2 stars in socks, classic Voss. Grinned faint. Word spread fast in these hills. State Police GIS flagged my plat quick. Outside, dusk deepened. A doe picked through the duff near pin 3, ears twitching at the creek. No blackberries stirred, Lauren learned, but whispers down ridge. Generals armed, dangerous. Seeds for HOA push, new builds creeping like the valley subs eyeing my buffer acres. They'd petition zoning, claim community trails over my wire. I'd counter, chain of title to 1887 homesteader grant, CC and RS null on unincorporated land. Patience plats prevail, like the boat gleaming post-retraction, kids touring while Karen glared. Coffee drained, I banked the fire embers for dawn, stepped out, breath fogging. Stars punched through the ink-black sky, Orion's belt crisp at 9,000 feet. Jay silent now. Mountain quiet again, deeper for the echo. Lessons etched, appearances deceive, but deeds endure. The protector in plaid watches the line, and if they test it, survey in hand, salute or no. Weeks passed, then months. Winter clamped down hard on the ridges, snow piling thigh-deep on the logging spur, the creek freezing into glassy shelves, the cabin's chimney sending a steady blue plume into the iron-gray sky. I kept to routine. Split wood at first light, coffee black and scalding, survey plats reviewed by lantern when the power flickered from wind. Solitude held mostly, but the mountain had ears now. Lauren Carter didn't vanish after that October afternoon. She stayed. Her husband, Mark, a quiet software engineer who commuted to the valley 3 days a week, started waving when their Subaru passed my turnout on grocery runs. Ethan took to riding his bike on the county road shoulder, never once crossing the orange-tape pins. Once in early December, Lauren left a foil pan on my porch. Gingerbread cookies, still warm with a note tucked under the plastic wrap. Harlan, thank you for the patience and for the lesson. These are terrible, but the thought counts. Lauren and Ethan, Mark helped with the frosting. I ate one, they weren't terrible. Word traveled the way mountain stories do, slow at first, then in widening ripples. Lauren told it at the new community center potluck in the Valley subdivision, first to the book club, then the ski club, then the parents waiting at the school bus stop. Each retelling polished a little brighter, but she never changed the punchline. She'd lean in, eyes wide with self-deprecating glee, and deliver it the same way every time. I called 911 on a stranger with an axe and ended up saluting a major general. Laughter followed, always. Some incredulous, some delighted. Phones came out. She showed the blurry photo she'd snapped that day from the tree line, me on the porch in flannel, Colonel Harlan returning the salute, deputies standing at loose attention like boys caught in a history lesson. The image made the rounds on the neighborhood Facebook group, then the local next-door thread titled New Resident PSA, Know Your Property Lines, Funny Story Inside. By spring thaw, the tale had legs. Hikers on the Forest Service Trail asked directions to the general's cabin. A retired couple from California stopped their Jeep at the turnout one Saturday, binoculars in hand, not Ethan's cheap pair but serious optics, and asked politely if they could see the chopping block where it all happened. I offered coffee. They declined, thanked me for my service, and drove off grinning. Kids started calling it the Salute Cabin. Ethan's friends dared each other to ride past on bikes, shouting "General" before racing away. Teenagers filmed TikToks at the trailhead, shaky vertical videos panning from the no trespassing sign to my distant roofline, voiceover dramatic. This guy got 911D and the cops saluted him. Legend. Lauren embraced it. She baked more cookies, better ones now, and dropped them off every few weeks. Once she brought Mark and Ethan for a proper walk along. I showed them the full survey loop, pointed out pin 7 half buried under blackberry runners, explained how the 1887 homesteader grant still held against modern easements. Ethan asked smart questions about courts-martial. Mark asked about the boat patrol days down at the marina. Lauren just listened, quieter than before. The embarrassment long faded into something like quiet respect. The story grew teeth of its own. Down in the valley, the new HOA board, formed last fall by the very transplants who'd bought open wilderness parcels, started citing the general's property in their newsletters. Respect boundaries like our neighbor the retired Major General does, one memo read. Clear lines keep the peace. Irony thick enough to cut with them all. I heard the variations secondhand. At the hardware store in town, an old-timer buying chainsaw chain told the clerk, "That Voss fella up on the ridge. Lady called the law thinkin' he was trouble. Turns out he's the trouble they send when trouble gets out of line." The clerk laughed. Heard she saluted him like he was still on active duty. Close enough. One crisp April evening I sat on the porch with a fresh pot of coffee, watching dusk bleed purple over the peaks. The jay landed on the railing, cocked its head, then flew off. No sirens that day, no panicked voices, just the creek and the wind. My phone, sat signal strong for once, pinged. A text from Eli Harlan, now promoted to full colonel and reassigned to district command. Heard the legends growing, sir. Next time you're in town, coffee on me. Still owe you for that row briefing in 5. I typed back just Harlan, and bring better coffee than mine. No reply needed, the mountain knew. Lauren's line had stuck because it was perfect, absurd, human, redemptive. I called 911 and ended up saluting a major general. It captured the pivot, from fear to understanding, from panic to protocol, from stranger to neighbor. In a world of quick judgments and faster calls, it reminded people that sometimes the hermit in flannel carries more history than the view. The cabin stayed quiet, but the legend, that spread like wildfire through dry timber. And every time someone new moved up the ridge, someone else would lean over the fence or the Facebook group and say the same thing. Watch the lines, there's a general up there, and he's got paperwork.